marketing agency based in Ottawa that helps businesses innovate and automate their digital marketing activities. Visit them at houseedgemedia.com. The House Edge Sports Network and Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney will be teaming up to develop and offer media boot camps for youth interested in learning more about a career in sports and live entertainment broadcasting. Be sure to subscribe to their HESN YouTube channel. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Cora's Restaurant on Saint Laurent for its support of this broadcast. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Watermart for its support of HESN. This broadcast is brought to you in part by Arturo's Restaurant, located at 94 Beechwood Avenue in Vanier. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank GameStrat for its support of HESN Youth Sports Network. This broadcast is brought to you in part by House Edge Media. House Edge Media is a creative marketing agency based in Ottawa that helps businesses innovate and automate their digital marketing activities. Visit them at houseedgemedia.com. The House Edge Sports Network and Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney will be teaming up to develop and offer media boot camps for youth interested in learning more about a career in sports and live entertainment broadcasting. Be sure to subscribe to their HESN YouTube channel. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Cora's Restaurant on Saint Laurent for its support of this broadcast. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Watermart for its support of HESN. Watermart is owned and operated by one of our very own, Dan Lachance, the president of the Canada Knights football program. HESN would like to thank Abley Productions for its support of this broadcast.
HESN is bringing esports to Ottawa. Check out which tournaments are available at hesn.co. Cash prizes, limited spots. Don't miss out.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Arturo's Restaurant, located at 94 Beechwood Avenue in Vanier. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank GameStrat for its support of HESN Youth Sports Network. This broadcast is brought to you in part by House Edge Media. House Edge Media is a creative marketing agency based in Ottawa that helps businesses innovate and automate their digital marketing activities. Visit them at houseedgemedia.com. The House Edge Sports Network and Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney will be teaming up to develop and offer media boot camps for youth interested in learning more about a career in sports and live entertainment broadcasting. Be sure to subscribe to their HESN YouTube channel. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Cora's Restaurant on Saint Laurent for its support of this broadcast. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Watermart for its support of HESN. Watermart is owned and operated by one of our very own, Dan Lachance, the president of the Canada Knights football program. HESN would like to thank Abley Productions for its support of this broadcast.
HESN is bringing esports to Ottawa. Check out which tournaments are available at HESN.co. Cash prizes, limited spots. Don't miss out.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Arturo's Restaurant, located at 94 Beechwood Avenue in Vanier. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank GameStrat for its support of HESN Youth Sports Network. This broadcast is brought to you in part by House Edge Media. House Edge Media is a creative marketing agency based in Ottawa that helps businesses innovate and automate their digital marketing activities. Visit them at houseedgemedia.com. The House Edge Sports Network and Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney will be teaming up to develop and offer media boot camps for youth interested in learning more about a career in sports and live entertainment broadcasting. Be sure to subscribe to their HESN YouTube channel. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Cora's Restaurant on Saint Laurent for its support of this broadcast. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Watermart for its support of HESN. Watermart is owned and operated by one of our very own, Dan Lachance, the president of the Canada Knights football program. HESN would like to thank Abley Productions for its support of this broadcast.
HESN is bringing esports to Ottawa. Check out which tournaments are available at HESN.co. Cash prizes, limited spots. Don't miss out.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Arturo's Restaurant, located at 94 Beechwood Avenue in Vanier. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank GameStrat for its support of HESN Youth Sports Network. This broadcast is brought to you in part by House Edge Media. House Edge Media is a creative marketing agency based in Ottawa that helps businesses innovate and automate their digital marketing activities. Visit them at houseedgemedia.com. The House Edge Sports Network and Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney will be teaming up to develop and offer media boot camps for youth interested in learning more about a career in sports and live entertainment broadcasting. Be sure to subscribe to their HESN YouTube channel. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Cora's Restaurant on Saint Laurent for its support of this broadcast. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Watermart for its support of HESN. Watermart is owned and operated by one of our very own, Dan Lachance, the president of the Canada Knights football program. HESN would like to thank Abley Productions for its support of this broadcast.
HESN is bringing
And welcome to the HESN Football Podcast. We've got a very special show here because we're joined with a special guest, Keita. And Keita is a PhD student at the University of Ottawa who is studying sports psychology and the psychology of motivation, which is something that I think is super important for young athletes to understand and to utilize the tools to become better athletes and better people, because motivation isn't just about athletics and sports, but all facets of life. So welcome to the show. Little bit of housekeeping. I'm Jesse Card, the host of the show with Kyle, my main man on the podcast. Producer Steve is in house taking care of us from a technical standpoint, and he's got his voice hooked up today. So
yeah, we decided to give him his mic back.
I don't know what the rationale was there, but he's equipped and he can jump in at any time. So it is what it is. But a little bit of housekeeping. Want to thank some of our sponsors. Some of these sponsors are guys that have helped us out indirectly or directly, but we want to make sure that we're giving them the credit that they deserve, because this production, the podcast, the live broadcast of the game, and the coverage for this youth sports league, which is NCAFA majority, takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of resources. So we do need people's help. So we want to thank those people. Want to thank Cora's Restaurant, who is owned and operated on St. Laurent by a football father, a great football father. He's at every single one of his son's games. He's a great volunteer for the organization of the Panthers. His son just wrapped up a season with Franco Cite. Johnny Adoud. I want to thank his dad, because he spotted us lunch a couple weeks ago when we went and met Coach Karate for lunch, and we going to pay the bill, and I was actually going to try to get Karate to pay for it, but he comes around. Boys, it's all taken care of, and what a boss that guy is. So I want to thank Eli for his support of HESN, whether he knows it or not. Want to also thank Arturo's Restaurant, which is located in Beechwood, because the owner of Arturo's gave us a production bus for the championship games, and it was a real treat, man. It was
that RV was it helped out during those cold, rainy days.
It was, we had the camera guys going in there to get warm up, a little bit of respite. We organized our notes before we went on air, and maybe we'll see that thing again. So we want to make sure that he's in a generous mindset and mood in the summertime, when we were going to need maybe that bus to go down and film a Panthers game in Toronto and broadcast. So thank you to Arturo's Restaurant at 94 Beechwood Avenue. And we also want to thank a local company, a startup, Ottawa U football players. They also go to Ottawa U, Keita. About 3 or 4 young entrepreneurs that have started a software company called GameStrat, which will allow teams and organizations to better understand what plays they're calling in real time, and have that relayed back to the decision makers and play callers. They came out and filmed provided the technology to the Nepean Eagles on the Interprovincial Bowl game against North Shore. And the results speak for themselves. What was supposed to be a massive blowout was a very, very good game, and we can't help but think that GameStrat had a small part to play in that.
Yeah, to be able to have that technology on the sideline available to you right after a play, to be able to review it with your O-line if the blocking scheme needs to be adjusted, or if your receivers need to adjust their routes a little bit, to be able to have that is critical and can be the difference in a game.
Yeah, you can unveil things. You can see in football, maybe the corner is not getting into his coverage to the depth that he should be. That's something that maybe 3 or 4 plays or a series later you can attack. So I would love to spend more time with this technology. I just haven't had a lot of time to use it myself. But I want to say that something that my mentor, Steve Dean, has said, and it's football investing in football, which is what we want to give GameStrat a shout out, because they're Ottawa guys, they're local guys, they're football, and they need the community support to get their company up and running and viable. So support to GameStrat. Want to also thank Watermart, which is Dan Lachant's company. He also has Coffee Mart. There's located in the west end of Ottawa, and chemical-free drinking water for the home and office for as little as $1 a day. Dan Lachance, as many that are watching the show understand how much time he puts into the Canada Knights organization as the president there. Want to thank Watermart.
Yep, and Dan was out there helping us do public announcing for the Interprovincial Bowl Series.
He was, and we want to move through this. We also want to thank Tim Tierney, City Councillor of Beacon Hill, HILL-CYRVILLE. And Tim is helping us with a few special projects that we're going to be introducing in boot camps around the city to help kids that might be interested in getting involved in sports as a business and also as an industry. Not only from the psychological standpoint like you, Keita, but also from sports broadcast and entertainment standpoint like what the House Edge Sports Network does. So I want to thank Tim. Also want to, if you have the graphic, Steve, of the Patreon account, I want to bring special attention. It might be in your email. If you don't have it, all good. You know, I can just talk about it. But for those that might not know, Patreon is a crowdfunding application and source, and they all stand for artists and creators, content creators, to be able to fund what they do. And so, you know, I want to say that my partner's Tyler McLaren, who helped start HESN back in the day 7 or 8 years ago, was always telling me that you got to look at Patreon as a monetization form. I never really took it that serious. I have looked into it recently, and we decided to open up an account. So what we're asking right now, and this thing will evolve, but if you like what we're doing, I'm going to be straight up and tell you that we need your support. So Patreon, if you visit patreon.com/HESN, there's a couple of reward categories. You can become somebody as little as $1 a month to support what we're doing in the podcast. You can just become a patron of ours. Or $10 a month, you can become a community level HESN supporter. It'll help fund our podcasts like we're doing every week with this show, and also getting out. The more patrons, community level supporters we have, the more games we can cover. So that's all I'll say about that. Check it out, patreon.com/HESN.
Yep.
So let's get into the meat and potatoes, Kyle.
All right, so championship weekend in Canadian football. We had the Vanier Cup, we had the Grey Cup, but let's touch on the Vanier Cup first. Right there, you can see the Western Mustangs defeated Laval Rougeard 39-17. Greg Marshall finally wins his first Vanier as a head coach.
Greg Marshall. So I probably talked about it 100 times over the years, but Greg Marshall was my first university football coach. When I arrived at McMaster University, Greg Marshall ran a Yates Cup level team that I stepped onto, and he was the most intimidating man and figure that I've ever met in my life, but he ran a hell of a good football team. He was never able, he's won 18 championships at the Yates Cup Ontario level, advanced to semifinals. In some cases, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he has taken teams to the Vanier but lost, but might not have. He might have never made it past the semifinal. He finally does it against probably the most powerful program in Canadian university history, Laval Rougeard, and he does it convincingly and finally takes that monkey off his back. Now, my question to you, so congratulations to Greg Marshall. G. Marsh gets the Vanier. I'm sure he was delighted. And it was hilarious because when they interviewed him at the end of the game, they said, you know, how are you going to celebrate this thing? And he says, well, excuse me, I'm dealing with a cold right now. He says, well, we're going back to London, and I think we're going to get after it pretty hard, so look out. You know, so they probably had some fun, and London was rocking that night. But as a guy that maybe wants, you know, an athlete that's searching, or an athlete or a coach, it's both relevant, searching for a championship for so long and putting so much investment in it, the pressure mounts and it compounds over time. What does that do psychologically, in your opinion? Can athletes and coaches put too much pressure on themselves to win and actually interfere with their ability to perform?
My suggestion for that is like focusing on the process.
Okay.
So like if you want to win, you may be focused too much on like a result and the outcomes, and you maybe think about something like outside of the sports. Like you have to do better and better. You have to get like being better and better.
Right.
But you should more focus on the process, how to improve your performance, how to get the process, how to access your goals. So
right.
You need to more focus on the like a process that makes you like reduce your stress from the pressure. I guess.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I think we hear NFL coaches always talking about that, right? Like focus on the process. If you do all the little things right, the result will come.
Yep.
right? You don't focus on the result, you focus on the journey. So good advice for sure. And I think maybe in the past, I was pretty critical of Western all year.
Yep.
And I did want them to win. I did want them, and they did. That's great. You took Laval.
Yes, I did.
So got you there. But anyways, you know what? That was a great performance. And it's good that Ontario's got another Vanier.
Yep. And Steve, if we could put that Vanier Cup graphic back up there, just a couple other points I want to talk about. Vanier, or the Western Mustangs, they ran wild. 302 rushing yards, 578 yards, total offense against the best defense in U Sports this year. But Western, can we say they're the most dominant Vanier champ of all time?
They're talking about that. Yep.
I mean, you look at all the points they put up in the playoffs. I think in 4 games it was 222 coming in, 39, so 261 points in 4 games.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say this might be the most dominant Vanier Cup National Championship U Sports team of all time.
Yep.
Did you see the cut that, I think it was Joseph, it might have been the other running back, but he ran through the hole, off tackle, and then sideways shuffled. It was almost like a GoldenEye 007 strafe move in real time, full speed, without slowing down. It was insane. And that's what they were talking about. It was Tim McAuliffe calling the game, who's a favorite of mine. And he, it was just really, there's some very talented kids playing university football in Canada. And like we saw, over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been record-breaking number of kids going straight to the CFL from CIS. And, this is topics that we've mentioned before. A lot of kids that are growing up think they need to go to the United States. But the truth is, the ability to get to the CFL, whether you go to NCAA, D1, D2, whatever, or going CIS, you're not, if you don't make it to the NFL, which is highly likely that anyone will, the chances of getting to the CFL are probably equal, if not maybe even more slanted towards people that played in Canada than it is the U.S., because they're more known by the coaches up here. So I just think the sport's in a good spot.
Yep, and one of the good things about the CFL is they have the rule where you have to have a certain amount of Canadian players. So that also helps get the Canadian content, keeping it in Canada.
Absolutely. Good point, Kyle. And the other thing, too, is Halifax might be getting a team.
Yeah, there's been rumblings about that.
It's never been closer. I read an article that the mayor of Halifax and the ownership group, some of the people that are interested in putting the money behind a new stadium in Halifax for a team, were here all week visiting with John Ruddy of Trinity Construction Group. And obviously he's an investor with the Ottawa Sports Entertainment Group. And they're looking at Ottawa. Sorry, guys. They're looking at Ottawa as a real shining light example of how to do it right in the CFL. And if they do get a team, that means that's another 40, potentially 42 roster spots for Canadian kids to play in the CFL. So, I mean, that's huge. If we can grow the amount of teams, Quebec City would be another one that would be awesome to see in our lifetime.
And not only does it open up X amount of Canadian football spots on that roster, it also creates a whole new generation of potential football players out in the Atlantic coast.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what happened when the Toronto Blue Jays won the World Series in 92 and 93.
Baseball exploded.
Now we're starting to see all those players get up to that age.
Yep.
And same with the Raptors when they had Vince Carter in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Basketball.
Now we're starting to see Wiggins and Thompson and all the other Canadian players. They're starting to reach that age where they're reaching the NBA now.
It's a good point.
Yep.
And Steve, you said even not just 92 with the home run, but the recent playoff success that the Blue Jays have had.
Blue Jay effect.
Has had the Blue Jay effect even in Ottawa. A lot of kids are watching a lot more baseball and they want to play baseball.
Yep.
So it's good when the professional leagues are thriving, and certainly our local teams in Canada are thriving. It's good for the sport. There's a real trickle-down effect.
Every year, the Grey Cup is awesome. And I don't know, does it impact the football numbers at all? I mean, I'm not a big CFL regular season guy, but the playoffs are incredible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think I would say, as I'm a CFL fan through and through. I grew up watching it, and I didn't get into the NFL until after I was into the CFL. But I would say that, the amount of times they face each other is kind of it does kind of make it a little bit boring mid-season. You have to work hard to find the matchups and the interesting little, newsworthy items of the matchup and who's playing and who's sitting and who's injured. But this, in the NFL, it's like the Raiders play the Chiefs. There's one time.
Yep.
That's a little bit more interesting in my opinion. But you're right, Steve. When the playoffs come around, CFL never disappoints, and the Grey Cup again is another really classic game with the snow. They're talking about moving the season forward though, so that we end a couple weeks early, potentially to get rid of the snow. I'm not a fan of that. However, the other argument about doing that is that they're doing quite well on ESPN in the United States. So they're saying if they could add a couple games that weren't interfering with the NFL preseason schedule in the summertime, they might be able to build more fans in the U.S., therefore making more revenue on the TV deals, which would bring more money to the league, which isn't a bad thing.
Yep. Yeah. I'm not a fan of moving the season earlier. I like the Snow Bowls and what we saw on Sunday.
There's nothing more Canadian than that. I was listening to TSN 1200 and they're talking about Shania Twain dressed up in her bedazzled outfit. They said the only thing that's more Canadian from that concert would be her like lowering down into a Tim Hortons coffee. But instead
she
of
did at the end,
yeah,
you see her looking down
into the stage,
smash her face.
I know. I'd be worried about that. You don't want to mess up that pretty face either.
Yeah,
are you a Shania Twain fan, Keita?
No.
Do you know who she is?
No. Who's that?
Third baseman, Yankees. Awesome.
So for those watching, you need to talk a little bit about yourself and about what brings you here to the HESN Football Podcast. Where are you from originally, Keita?
I'm from Japan. I used to play baseball in Japan very competitively, and so baseball in Japan is huge.
Huge.
Yeah, and one of the most popular sports in Japan, and we have some good players in MLB like Ichiro, and Matsui, and Darvish, Yu Darvish, and Masahiro Tanaka,
and Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah,
I don't know if I pronounced it right.
Yeah,
he's coming over.
Toronto Blue Jays wants to get him. Right?
Oh yeah. So what age did you start playing baseball?
I think 8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I started with my friends. So everyone plays baseball.
Yeah.
In my hometown.
Right.
I grew up in really countryside, so we just have one choice. We have to play baseball.
Right. And what town are you from, or village?
So my town is maybe you don't know, like Toba City.
Toba City. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there's probably Tyler, my buddy's watching, and his wife's from Japan. She's from the north of Tokyo. The countryside, so she would know where you're from.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, there are so many fishermen.
Okay.
In my hometown, and we have really good seafood and something like that.
I bet. Yeah. I'd love to go to Japan sometime.
You should go.
I'm going to.
We'll make it there eventually.
So okay. So you're a baseball player from Japan, and then what got you into the field of human performance and mental human performance?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I'm studying sports and performance psychology at the University of Ottawa. I came here last year to study sports and performance psychology because University of Ottawa has a really good sports psychology program, and one of the largest sports psychology program in the world.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
See, and I mean it's right here. We don't know about that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I had no idea that it was that influential and established.
Mm-hmm. Because there are so many good professors who is studying sports and performance psychology.
Yep.
And one of the most famous sports psychology professor is named Dr. Terry Orick.
Okay.
Who I used to work with him, and I came here to work with him, but he just retired this year. And he's a really popular and famous sports psychology consultant in my field. And there are so many good professors in my field.
So what would be your advice, Keita, for young athletes? Is there advantage to kids getting introduced to sports psychology and performance motivation training earlier than later?
For sure, earlier is better.
Right, and why?
My professor always tell me earlier is better because kids is more flexible.
Right.
So that means easy to learn, like a psychological aspect. But if you're matured enough, it's kind of
It's more difficult.
Yeah, difficult to study, difficult to change your personality or something like that.
Right.
So area is better for sure.
And it's good to get kids involved in many different sports rather than focusing them on just one, correct?
It's hard to tell, but
Just baseball.
no, I don't agree with the idea like RE specialization. I read the article which shown RE specialization is going to be a cause of the injury.
Yep.
So I don't disagree with like RE specialization, but I don't agree with the RE
Like-
specialization. It's hard.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I don't really know. You probably have read more about that recently than I have. I know. I think back, like, probably somebody told me this, so I don't even know if it's true. But Wayne Gretzky came out like back in the day, maybe 20 years ago, and said that he believes kids are playing too much hockey, and that they should play other sports like baseball or basketball, and it will train athletically your neuro pathways
That's true.
differently. But I don't know what the research is saying these days. I think pairing groups together are good. Like, for example, we just saw an image of a sprinter, right? So football and sprinting is becoming very, very common, where in the off season, football players will work with the university track teams, and they have the resources. I remember about my second or third year at McMaster, some of the top players like Jesse Lumsden and Jason Pottinger were working with the track coach at McMaster in their spare time as a supplement to their training.
Cool.
And that's and definitely when you get closer to the combine and you get the invite to the Transglobe Combine, you have to work on your starts, and you need some actual coaching and professional help with that stuff to run the best time you have. But I mean, in terms of the mental side, what do you think are some of the most common issues with mental performance that athletes run into?
So I think
Like, if you could name 3 of the top.
I think burnout.
Burnout.
Yeah, burnout is one of the biggest issue in the youth sports because it's kind of motivational issue, right? So, yeah, if you have the motivation for doing the sports, so burnout is gonna be a big problem.
So in Ottawa, hockey's huge, right? You know that Ottawa's a hockey town. We always say football. Ottawa's a football factory too, but we don't come close to the amount of kids that are playing hockey now. In hockey, a lot of times you have 75 regular season games, and then you have a playoff series that's 7 games, like best of 7. Like baseball, it's such a long season, so. Burnout must be an issue for hockey players and baseball players.
Yeah.
At some point you go into the rink and you're just like, I'm over this, man.
Whether you're waking up at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning for a practice, or if you're driving to London, Ontario for a tournament or something, it's
and you notice that in playoffs, if we take it to the professional level, you hear the cliche that you just need to be hot at the right time. Are we actually looking at a team that kind of congeals together and galvanizes a motivational thing that we're watching?
Yeah, so that's
they're all just excited to play hockey at the right time, and then they're motivated, and then that which leads to Stanley Cups or pendants,
Yeah, so always a motivational issue, right? So the parents and the coaches need to think a game and the sports participation is an opportunity to develop and learn a personal skill or something like that. So it's opportunity to develop your athlete's personal side and also the mental side, I guess.
So I've always wondered, and this is really cool that you're here right now and that Steve's kind of introduced you to what we're doing, because I've often felt that the mental side of sports is neglected. I don't think I've taken one formal goal-setting course in my entire life that was given to me by my sports club or my school. All through public school, all through high school, all through university and a postgraduate, they never talked about any of that stuff. Never a goal-setting thing for my school, motivation on why I'm here studying this,
Yeah.
it's lacking for sure. Now,
Yeah.
what kind of programs or workshops do you think would make sense to introduce to kids playing youth sports that they could do, in conjunction with their season that they're playing? Do you think that we're missing something there?
Yeah, I can say that like motivation is the most important mental aspect for the kids and everyone as well. So
Coaches too.
yeah, coaches too. Yeah, coaches burnout is also a big issue in
Yep.
sports field. So I think the goal setting, as you told, so one is the most important thing. So you need to think. So why you do what you do, right? So why? That's a kind of the purpose of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to. So you guys need to think about what you do, and also coach also needs to think why you coach
Right.
your sports.
Would that be something you'd be interested in building with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe we're looking at an event or a monthly like kind of meetup where we can refocus
That's cool.
on why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So explain. So you're working on your thesis. You're obviously a brainiac. You're a PhD student.
Yeah.
So we're not worthy. No. But Wayne's World quote. Anyone? No. Too young. No. Steve's not a
Yeah,
fan
I'm
of
too
Wayne's.
young.
Too young. You didn't like the movie though.
I did back in the 80s.
It came out in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
80s, 90s.
it's just
70s.
it's a blur.
Yeah, to Steve, it's all a blur.
Still is. Don't worry.
So that's really cool, man. So we talked about motivation.
Yeah.
What's another one that like youth athletes run into a lot? Like that's like could be a major roadblock to their success.
Okay, so I think that's the second one is like a coping,
Okay.
stress management, I guess.
Right.
So yeah, we have a lot of pressure in our lives, right? So we need to deal with the pressure and the stress and anxiety or something. So the kids also need to learn how to deal with anxiety and pressures. So by studying sports psychology, so coach can teach how to deal with anxiety or pressure or something, and the kids also learn how to deal with anxiety.
And it's good to teach kids at a younger age on how to deal with that,
Yes.
because obviously that is becoming more of a forefront issue with all the mental health initiatives going on these days.
That's true, and also they can apply how to deal with anxiety to their
To everyday life.
everyday life,
Right.
For the study, for like communicating with
Yeah.
their
You don't
friends.
want to let those things fester until it's a court-ordered anger management course like I had. No, I'm joking. But, no, I think coping's a huge one because, if I look back, I'm going to try to introduce a personal story, and I'm trying to think back on like some of the stuff that I struggled with. So I was very nervous. I remember starting to play competitive football in Nakafa, and I remember like my parents driving me to. There's one example I can remember where we were driving to play West Carleton out in at the West Carleton Secondary School, and I had butterflies that were so powerful. Like I couldn't even. I had no energy. I felt sick to my stomach, and and it would take about half a quarter to like get that out and then be like, why was I so nervous? Like I'm fine. Like I'm not,
You're playing football. You're doing what you love as a kid.
Yeah. But I mean that took that was like 7 or 8 years old. I remember those feelings. And I just kind of like there were no blueprints. There was some books I read along the way and I internalized and I thought about how to improve those things. And then it didn't really get better until I was still struggling with those kind of feelings into university. And then the light bulb went off and I figured it out. And then I was able to really almost like get myself into a peak performance mindset before games. But some athletes struggle with that their whole lives and aren't able to overcome it. And I mean, they could be much better players if they had the proper coping strategies. Another big one that I think about is like, as a corner, sometimes there's a lot of pressure in football. You think about a pitcher, another example, corner, pitcher, quarterback, goalie. These are positions that the spotlight is on you. And if you have a bad game or you let like an easy one in, that can just be looping in your head the whole game. So coping and learning techniques to let things go, focus in the moment. These are things that athletes don't get help with. You know, you're lucky if your father or your mom knows about this and then introduces you to a book that you read. That's like, athletes are on their own for that sort of stuff. And what you're talking about is maybe bringing that more into the mainstream, so that, you know, we have personal trainers everywhere. We have gyms. We have, you know, speed strength coaches. We have goalie coaches, pitcher coaches. We don't have really peak performance coaches.
I think you should guys have the mental performance coaches. So right now, so in Major League Baseball team, so for example, Toronto Blue Jays, they hire sports psychology consultant, mental performance consultant to improve athletes' performance from the mental side. So I think you guys need to consider having the
for sure
the mental performance
could be
coach.
a big business for you one day. Now,
maybe
let's talk about the Grey Cup.
All right, Steve, if we could get the Grey Cup graphic up there, please. So obviously it was an exciting game. We woke up, we went to bed on Saturday, and it was a beautiful day. And we wake up Sunday morning,
Flurries.
Bunch of snow. So they were playing in the Winter Wonderland. You had about 100 kids out there shoveling the snow away. I wish we had that for the Provincial Bowl series. But, but besides that,
You did a good job of it.
Yeah, but we had a great game on Sunday. The heavily favored Calgary Stampeders. Well, I say heavily favored, but look,
They were. Let's call it what it is. I mean,
well, I think they were favored by 7, but
okay.
But yeah, Toronto came back and defeated them 27-24. 2 really long plays for Toronto. They had the 100-yard reception right in the beginning by Posey, and the 109-yard fumble recovery.
What a play!
Oh, you had.
How about the guy throwing him under the bus, the other receiver?
Yeah, Marquay McDaniel. He came out and said,
"Hold your tongue."
Why are you holding one ball there, or why are you holding the ball with one hand there?
It's easy to say. Hindsight's 20/20, man. The guy's a football player and he's fighting for extra yards.
Yeah.
Yes, it sucks that the ball came out, but you can't really throw that on him. I'm sure he's feeling bad about that once the emotions came down. Like, I'm sure he was saying, you know, I could have easily waited a beat and, you know, not throwing my teammate under the bus like that. I think that was a little immature.
Well, I saw something on Twitter where it was that same play where McDaniel was sort of just strolling along. He wasn't really chasing the guy to tackle him, but that it is what it is.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they're sports guys. I like that. I like it when people say we're sports guys. You freak out, you know, and then you move on.
Yep.
And that's all he's doing. He was disappointed. It was a crushing defeat.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's an emotional time. I mean, you come into the championship game, you see the Red Blacks 2016 Grey Cup banner that Calgary feels should have been theirs hanging up right in front of them, and
yeah. So let's okay. So the 2 huge plays, definitely they don't have those. Maybe they don't win. It was an awesomely entertaining game. The snow, it was so Canadian. I want to shout out to Chris Van Zyl, who I played with at McMaster, who's number 54 O-lineman, right tackle. Won another Grey Cup and won one with them back in the 100th Grey Cup.
Yep.
But they got to be feeling special, and it's good for Toronto because they've been struggling with fans and all that, you know. So Toronto, we need a good Argos team to have a good CFL, in my opinion. But let's talk about, you know, Ricky Ray going out on top. Is he going to come back?
Well, I know this might have been a spur of the moment kind of thing, but at the Grey Cup party yesterday, he's like, fans were chanting 1 more year, and his response was, why not 2? But
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, we saw this last year with Henry Burris. Go out on top. No one's going to...
John Elway, yeah.
Yep. No one's going to tear you down for going out on
Peyton
top.
Manning.
Peyton Manning, yep.
So, so whatever happens there, you know, time will tell.
Whatever happens, Ricky Ray is going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Only quarterback to win 4
4
Grey Cups.
Yeah.
So
It's crazy. But let's talk about the other quarterback, Bo Levi Mitchell from Texas. He won one, and I believe it was 2011 with the Calgary Stampeders when they played in BC. So he has a ring. But then, you know, a couple of years, they don't make it. Last year, they lose to the Red Blacks. They were heavily favored. This year, heavily favored, lost to Toronto. From a sports psychology standpoint, Keita, this guy must be, you know, we know that he's hurting and he's feeling bad, but, like, is this the kind of thing, like, we're talking about coping. This is a professional athlete that's probably making $500,000 a year in Canada, which ain't bad. Now he's got to go back in the offseason and he's probably dealing with thoughts of like, am I good enough? Did I blow it? All these sort of things that he's battling with right now. And I mean, to make it to the professional ranks, they're such fierce competitors that like, what sort of things is he dealing with right now as a guy that's lost 2 championships in a row and is maybe doubting himself and has to find the motivation to come back and give it another go, right? Because he's still a young player.
Yeah, I think he needs to have a good mindset, I say.
Yeah.
So I think mindset is really important. I called the stress is enhancing mindset. So if you see the stress as your opportunity to grow, you can use the stress to develop.
Right.
However, if you believe stress is bad, I hate stress. I don't want to avoid stress. So
stress and e-stress.
Yeah. So stress hurts you.
Right.
So I think he needs to have a good mindset.
So it's almost like what you're talking about is perspective.
Yeah, perspective.
Like he needs
cognitive is the most important things for your motivation.
He needs people to help him get a fresh and positive perspective right now.
Yeah.
My other question is, they talk about, I remember reading somewhere that in the physical world, more energy and effort improves things. So if you think about lifting weights, the more weight you pull and you press and you push, the stronger your muscles grow. But in the mental world, it's the opposite. The more effort and energy and thought you put into something, it actually detracts from the subconscious mind, allowing things to go. And so it's like the more energy you put on something, the more it grows. And if that's stress or if that's that, negative emotions, those things are just growing. You're fueling the fire. What do you have to say about that? Is that true, first off?
I think not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the mental aspect is also like a kind of muscle. So if you train like your muscle, so mental aspect can be like a trains, right? So it's trainable.
Right.
So that we called mental skills, the mental skills training. That means the skills. You can learn the mental skills by studying sports psychology or mental skills training. So you can develop your mental skills by training every day. But it's hard to be stable. So your mindset or your perspective. So that's why you need to train.
Yeah.
And you need to get a good habit to have good mindset or good perspective and cognitive aspect.
Right.
And also you need to have a positive thinking.
We're just looking at a brain lifting weights.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
Good image.
That's right. The good image.
Good image.
Yep. Yeah, and when I was at Humber College doing my sports management studies, we went down to Florida and we stayed at a place called the IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. And one of the things they stressed was mental skills training. Like you were saying, we have to train it because it is part of the game.
Yeah.
The mental is just as important as the physical.
Yes.
So it is something that is gaining traction.
Yeah. Yeah, I know IMG Academy because they have a lot of sports psychology consultants.
Yeah, they're one of the highest regarded places.
And I used to live in Florida and I visited IMG Academy many times, and I know the sports psychology consultant there, and one was a guy who is working with Toronto Blue Jays right now, used to work in IMG Academy.
Yeah, because they do their spring training down there near Dunedin.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think I heard the Argos talk about when they they were talking to him in the locker room. Our vision started back at Florida at IMG. So the Argos were there for their spring camp at times.
And the Oakland Raiders were practicing there when they stayed over before their game against Miami. I think we played recently.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of professional sports teams stay there. They're a high performance sort of a prep school almost, where they get these high school age kids or kids as young as 7 or 8 years old.
I'm just reading a quote here that Steve's got up for us. Once an athlete has mastered all the technical and physical qualities required to be successful on the international circuit, then success is 10% physical, 90% mental.
Yep.
I believe that wholeheartedly. And I don't think it's just, sports related. If you talk about business or anything, like what I've found in my life, like the goal setting has been the biggest thing in my life. And it's funny because I haven't set goals for myself in a couple of years, you know? So even when we know the most important thing we should be doing, we still have trouble doing it.
Yeah.
So it really shows that you need to focus on this and you need to work at it. Like you said, it's a muscle. You need to put these things in practice and make sure you're doing it regularly. And you need to have people around you, a support network, to give you the proper perspective on things. That's important sometimes in youth sports where sometimes parents are putting too much pressure on their kids and saying, you know, you got to manage their career a certain way and you got to be playing here. The truth is,
yes, that's true.
sometimes you just got to be a kid and play the sport.
Yeah, the parents is one of the biggest cause of dropout for the youth sports.
Burnout.
Yeah, burnout. Yeah, so parents hurts kids, right?
So if we're planning an event to introduce youth athletes in Ottawa to more mental side of things, it's not just for the kids, it's for their parents just as much, right?
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
so. Yeah, parents also need to consider the mental aspect and the motivational aspect.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
We,
Now, sorry.
yeah, it's
Yep,
okay.
good,
Yeah. No, for that. Yeah, I think we call it's an intrinsic motivation.
Intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, intrinsic motivation is one of the most important things for the performance and the continuation of the sports. But we need to care of the intrinsic motivation, like enjoyment of the sport,
Right.
or something like that. Parents need to care the enjoyment of the sports for the kids, right?
Strength starts within.
Yes.
100%, man. And you know what? At the end of the day, you know, I remember, like, doubt's a big one. You know, I remember doubting myself and, like, you know, everyone struggles with confidence and self-esteem. But you know, I remember thinking, you know, you work so hard to get to a level and then you're there and then you're almost afraid that the imposter syndrome comes in. You're like, God, I've worked so hard and I've had to fight so hard to, like, convince people that I'm worthy to be here, that maybe I've been spending all this time, like, am I actually worthy of being here? But, you know, I remember, like, a major perspective thing that helped me was, like, I remember looking in the mirror and saying, like, here's the choice. Like, either you believe in yourself, and if you don't believe in yourself, what the hell can you believe in? So it's not really a choice. That's the perspective, like, arithmetic I did for myself at one time at a crucial point. I remember saying, like, it's not really a choice, because if you don't believe in yourself, then what the hell can you believe in? So you have to believe in yourself, and you have to find that motivation and desire and the why within for yourself, so that once you have that for yourself, the external circumstances that happen to you aren't really relevant. They're just things that happen, but that intrinsic desire is
Intrinsic
protected
motivation.
motivation.
Reason, and you said like a doubt.
Right.
That's usual for everyone.
It's normal, yeah.
Yeah, it's normal. So you shouldn't avoid doubting yourself. It's okay.
It's natural.
It's natural. It's an opportunity. It's a learning opportunity. It's a good learning process. So you should have doubt. You should keep your doubts in your hearts. So, but the mindset is more important, right?
That's cool.
So the doubt is gonna be opportunity to grow yourself.
This guy's awesome.
So it's hard to have like a high self-confidence. So sometimes like all people say like self-confidence is really, really important. You have to believe in yourself. However, sometimes high self-confidence interfere your development. So that means over self-confidence.
I think that's huge. Like the fact that you talked about that. I mean, we see it again and again. Prima donnas in sports. You know, kids that maybe develop a little bit faster than other kids. And let's take hockey, for example. A kid is just like an incredible hockey player. He's dangling around everyone. He's scoring 100 goals a season in the league. Then it goes to his head, and his parents are telling him that he's so good, he's so much better, he's going to the NHL, all this. And then what happens is, like, he starts to internalize that. He stops working as hard. Maybe everyone around him at a certain age has a growth spurt, and then he's actually got more pressure on himself because he still believes that he's that awesome kid that he was when he was playing when he was 10, but now he's 15, and everyone around him is just as good, and maybe people are getting better than him, but he's still got this rotten attitude that's left over from being 10 years old. So that's another thing I think comes down to perspective. It comes down to the mental training of wanting to work and trusting the process, like we talked about earlier. Like, you have to enjoy getting better. You know, it can't be a job when you're having to work out 7 days a week. You have to find things that are fun about it to get to that level. And you see guys like Steve Nash and, you know, Tom Brady in football. Those are the guys that you can tell really trust the process and love doing what they do. Now, there's one last like psychological thing I want to get to because I'm super interested in it, and it's momentum. Do you ever study or think about momentum? And I'll paint you a picture. So when I studied psychology at McMaster, one of the courses I thought was very interesting was evolutionary psychology, and they talked about some animals, in particular birds, fly in flocks, and although they're operating on a very primitive, brain makeup with the limbic system, and they don't have a neocortex, they're able to kind of fly together. And they don't actually have to see a threat to react to one another. So what they actually do is if one bird sees something and flies off this way, they can almost instantaneously all react to that together. So it's a reaction. When I see a team lose all momentum in a sport, like within a second or two, something occurs in a game, and it almost, you can see it. Collectively, there's a psychological change on one bench where everyone just starts to doubt. What the hell is happening when that happens? Are we maybe doing the same things as the birds, where we're taking cues from other players and reacting to that in a way and almost taking on a group state psychologically, and then the other team, it almost happens in reverse. You can just see them coming up and the confidence rising as a group and the energy,
Yeah.
Is that what's happening there?
Yeah, I think so. So we called it like corrective efficacy.
Okay.
So corrective efficacy is not just a sum of like individual self-confidence. So like as a team, the confidence as a team. So you guys need to have the confidence for your team. You can be
they're not just
better.
Individuals.
Yeah, not just individuals.
So it all collects into its own,
I think that's really important.
Psychological entity.
Yeah, that's a really important point for the group dynamics. So you guys need to have the confidence for the team. So what is like a strongest point of our teams? You guys need to think about that.
So they talk about having an identity as a team.
Yeah, identity of the team. So that's really important things to develop as a team, not as a just individual.
Right.
Right.
And that's something last year with the Ottawa Senators, Kyle. We looked at like the group identity. They said, you know what, we've always been behind. It's never been an issue. We always find a way to win. And they use that as a motivation and a thing to galvanize themselves around.
Yeah.
One of the things that came out from the Ottawa Senators last year was internally they said it doesn't matter who gets the credit, who gets the goals, who gets whatever. We need to do this as a team, and that's what we're going to focus on.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yep.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Keita, and Kyle. What'd you think, man?
That was good.
We could go on for hours.
Yeah, for sure we could go on for hours.
Yeah, but
maybe that'll be one of our little Patreon things in the future. We'll do an exclusive.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we get. Well, we're interested always to hear our audiences and what they think, ways we can improve what we're doing. So please, comment, reach out to us on social media, any form. But we're gonna wrap it there, and want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to wish you luck in your studies, and we're gonna definitely be talking more.
Yeah.
Once again, we've just started this Patreon account as a way to help fund. We've heard this week a lot of the newspapers are shutting down local coverage of and local news in all the areas. I think out of Metro, I think they closed 16 papers. And they talked about it on TSN 1200. How are the local kids going to get covered and get their news and have the motivation to know what they're doing is important and that people around them care? Well, I'll tell you, we are the way that that's going to happen. In order for us to cover more games, be around more communities, we need your help. So let's get. Oh yeah, and we got to go to the picks here. We're rushing through here.
Jesse's got to brag a bit because
I took Western. I'm not going to take too much credit for that, man. I wanted them to win, but like they were were they a favorite?
Yeah,
they were a favorite.
Yeah, they were
too many horses.
But I think I'm up on Kyle in the overall like A Cup championships, the provincial bowls, and the Vanier Grey Cup. We're gonna have a running thing.
we'll get some more picks going next week, and we'll be sure to keep a running tally of those.
So visit, if you like what we're doing, you want to just become a patron of ours, it's $1 a month is all, or more, whatever you feel comfortable giving and feel like you're in the position to give. $1 a month to become a patron. If you want to become a HESN community level supporter, you get access to, you get a t-shirt, first off. You get a baseball tee.
Nice.
See if we can get the camera back on
You
this.
get a baseball tee. This is yours, Keita. You're gonna leave with something.
Thank you so much.
And you get a T-shirt, $10 a month. You become a community level patron supporter of HESN. The money goes to us covering more games, doing the podcast. We've got a few goals that we need to get to. So if you've watched the show and you like what we're doing and you've seen us around the football field and all that stuff, or if you're in a different sport watching this and you want us to cover more hockey, I mean, this year, Kyle, how many people reached out and said, "Oh, did you guys do this game?" And we're just saying no, like we didn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't get the resources out there, but we definitely want to expand. Like, it's hockey season, and we got basketball coming up and baseball for Steve's teams there in the summer.
Yeah, so if we get a bunch of community level supporters on Patreon, man, we're in business. So I want to do that. I want to thank all the sponsors that we mentioned before. And we're going to be back again next week for the HESN Football Podcast, episode 30.
30 will be next week. So
live here on the House Edge Sports Network. I'm Jesse Card, co-host Kyle Ball, special guest Keita, the mental guru, and producer Steve in the back there. From all of us in the HESN crew, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Located at 94 Beechwood Avenue in Vanier. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank GameStrat for its support of HESN Youth Sports Network. This broadcast is brought to you in part by House Edge Media. House Edge Media is a creative marketing agency based in Ottawa that helps businesses innovate and automate their digital marketing activities. Visit them at houseedgemedia.com. The House Edge Sports Network and Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney will be teaming up to develop and offer media boot camps for youth interested in learning more about a career in sports and live entertainment broadcasting. Be sure to subscribe to their HESN YouTube channel. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Cora's Restaurant on Saint Laurent for its support of this broadcast. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank Watermart for its support of HESN. Watermart is owned and operated by one of our very own, Dan Lachance, the president of the Canada Knights football program. HESN would like to thank Abley Productions for its support of this broadcast.
HESN is bringing esports to Ottawa. Check out which tournaments are available at HESN.co. Cash prizes, limited spots. Don't miss out.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Arturo's Restaurant, located at 94 Beechwood Avenue in Vanier. The House Edge Sports Network would like to thank GameStrat for its support of HESN Youth Sports Network. This broadcast is brought to you in part by House Edge Media. House Edge Media is a creative marketing agency based in Ottawa that helps businesses innovate and automate their digital marketing activities. Visit them at houseedgemedia.com. The House Edge Sports Network and Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney will be teaming up to develop and offer media boot camps for youth interested in learning more about a career in sports.